welcome everyone back to another episode of
Not Fighting.
That's right, Not Fighting. And this is a show about, well, I guess I always say like, I'm Tyler Bishop, and then I always like, do I need to tell people who we are?
This is Jena Bishop.
Yeah. We should have just named it like the Tyler and Jena Bishop podcast, like personal branding, you know?
I know.
You don't think so?
Yeah.
See, that's the difference between us, right? Like, I'm way more like, let's put my name on everything. And also, hey,
You're
everybody.
a narcissist.
Yeah, I am. Like, whenever like Trump puts his name on buildings, I'm like, I get it.
That guy's gone, though.
Yep. And you know what? Like, honestly, I'm just happy to be done with election, like, news talk. I mean,
yes.
I know you never get rid of politics, but
and
like,
it's still probably going to carry on for a long time. But I'm like, well, at least the text messages and the advertisements are going to be done.
Oh, I'm so tired of the text messages. I was getting Missouri ones and California ones.
Yeah, same.
And I'm like, I don't know, guys. I voted like months ago, it feels like.
Right?
So it's too late.
Just over it all. And I just hope that, like, regardless of the outcome, regardless of, like, what your feelings are on it, like, we can all just, like, choose to be, like, good humans and try and, like, work together just to, like, make your own communities and make a good impact on, like, the area that you live in. Because I think that the whole politics, especially with the coronavirus and the election going on at the same time, I think that it was such a divisive thing. Like, I think the politicians on both sides were just trying to, like, keep everybody divided. And so for me, like, I'm not trying to go on a rant or anything, but I am. So I don't know, like, can we just all, like, choose to like be more understanding of each other's, like, opinions and, like, maybe see where people are coming from, and I'll try and be united, like, towards, like, one common goal, which is just to be, like, better people.
So I hear you, but I sort of go the other way.
Okay.
So
okay. I'm listening.
So throughout this entire process, you know, I was telling you this the other day. I don't know if it's like this contrarian nature built into me, but when I see like one side of the political spectrum, like trying to dunk on the other one, it's like I want to just like Lucy their Charlie Brown and pull their ball away. Like I find myself just like hating it. And it's like when somebody's like trying to tell me about like whatever issue or cause is really important to them in like the political sphere, I just want to be like, yeah. Well, I take a different stance. I'm anti-climate and I don't believe in immigration. Like, you know, I just don't think we should have any climate, and I don't think that immigrants exist. I think it's all fake news.
Yeah, you are quite the contrarian on certain things. Yes. But I do understand your sentiment, because I feel like at the end of the day, with this election, like, we kind of all lose.
Yeah. And that's the thing that I want everybody to try to take away from this. If you're really excited or you're really disappointed in the results, shame on you.
Yeah, just shame on you for having feelings about this at all.
Yeah. Because it's one of those things where, like, I agree with you. It's like, you know, I think everybody justifies whatever vote that they place is like the lesser of two evils, or like, well, at least it's better than the alternative. And it's like, it's a democracy, right? Like, we should be picking, like, not like choosing of like one or two options.
Lesser of two evils.
Yeah. It's like, democracy is like you get to choose. It's like going to or it's like, if
I think that's why I'm just happy it's done, because I'm like, everybody's like, go vote and like do all these things and like politics in your face, and then it's just like, well, I feel like I don't actually have a say in this because I don't want to vote for either of these people.
Yeah,
they clowns. Okay, but let's move on.
Yeah. And again, maybe it's my contrarian nature, but when somebody tells me to go vote, you know what I want to do is,
nah, I ain't gonna vote.
I don't want to vote. I want to not vote, and then I want to track down.
I want to be like, who are you voting for? I'm gonna vote for the opposite.
We cancel each other out. Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, I'm gonna not vote, and I'm gonna go out of my way to find somebody else's vote, and then try to make it invalid somehow.
So all the voter fraud you guys were talking about, Tyler was like tampering with votes somehow.
I think that's like some kind of crazy crime where you get like some way over the top sentence. So I don't want that on like YouTube, where the government at some point is going to be like, he admitted to voter fraud. Like, we're going to lock him up.
There was nothing done. We just did our mail-in ballots. That's it.
Of all the people that should go to jail, they send me to jail for like. Anyways,
nothing.
Don't investigate anything. There's nothing going on here. But speaking of things that are going on, like a while back we talked a little bit about you transitioning to MMA and doing a little bit more MMA training. And I know I've personally just gotten like people sending me messages and stuff, and they're like, "How's Jena doing? Like, she get hit in the face?" I think people want to know if you got hit in the face yet.
Yeah, I have.
So how was that?
And not as bad as I thought. Because I thought, like, man, like, if I'm the first time I do, like, a MMA sparring for real and, like, somebody hits me, like, or even just, like, any kind of striking sparring, I'm like, if I get hit, like, am I going to be able to handle that? But then I'm like, man, I get hit all the time in jiu-jitsu. I get elbows and knees in the face and whatever else. And it's not fun, but, like, you deal. And, usually if you get kneed or elbowed in the face, like, yeah, it's pretty egregious in jiu-jitsu because it's almost like you're colliding into it, like both people going. And so that's kind of sucky. But I have a little mark on my eye. I was like,
she was so proud of this, by the way.
Because I've always wanted a black eye. Like I get hit in the face. I've got a toe, like a straight toe, big toe in my eyeball. Like it just jabbed me in the eye where I couldn't really see good for like 2 days, and I was like all squinty and stuff, but
it was hilarious.
But and then I'm like, oh, like I don't want it to be infected because it's like who knows where that toe's been. But so that like has happened, and I've never like gotten a black eye. I got like my nose basically like broken in a match because I like got headbutted in the nose when
you pulled guard so hard.
I jumped guard when like we did it. It was like such a like violent pull that like the girl like headbutted me in the nose. And then I immediately armbarred her, but my face was swollen, no black eye. Like, just barely bruising, but, like, I don't bruise that easily. And so I'm always like, oh, like, I don't know why. I think it'd be cool to have a black eye. I have, like, one little bitty mark, and I'm like, okay, it's going to happen soon. It's going to happen.
Yeah, I've never understood that fascination. I always get black eyes at, like, the worst possible time.
Yeah, anytime you have, like, an important meeting.
Yeah, and anytime I've ever
when you have to do your real job.
Yeah, like I used like it got to the point to where like it's happened so many times that like when I would get in front of people and have to do like events or anything like that, I would like not train for like 5 or 6 days before because
let's be honest, it was like 2 days.
Yeah, I'm an addict, guys.
He's so dramatic all the time with his numbers. Everything's exaggerated.
Yep. So. I mean, the worst experience that I think I had with something like that is I remember I hip escaped. I was like trying to show somebody something, and I hip escaped into a pole.
Yep.
And I remember I hip escaped so hard into that pole that it cracked like
you busted your head open.
Yeah.
And what sucked about that is that like you were bleeding, and I had just like completely separated my shoulder, and I couldn't even tell you about it because you couldn't even understand anything that was going on because you were bleeding.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we got in the car deciding with whether or not we should go to the emergency room.
Which everybody said yes, and I was like,
he needed stitches.
And I was like, I'm not going to do it.
Nah. And it was jank. But I'm like, we get in the car. I'm like, man, my shoulder's really messed up. Like, it popped and it separated. And I got, like, swept and fell on top of, like, right on the AC joint. And it was bad, like, really bad. I couldn't lift my arm. And then he's, like, all, like, concussed and, like, has his head bleeding. And I'm like, what a pair we make.
Yeah, because then you have to make a decision as a man and be like, well, all right, well, I guess my head wound's not that bad. How's your shoulder? and realistically, you helped me. You mended me back to health by, like, with your one good arm, you put, like, that dust that's, like, supposed to help, like, a wound heal.
We were trying to make it stop bleeding.
Yeah, so we put glue and the dust. So, like, we tried to
did it all wrong.
Yeah.
I know better now.
So the next morning I wake up and I'm basically got what I would describe as like an iceberg of like glue and dust over this cut on my head. And I go into work and I'm in a conference room and I'm literally talking about something that we're going to do. And everybody's listening to me. And I reach up and I can feel that iceberg on my head and it's loose. And so I just kind of like flick it with my finger, just trying to like.
It's a scab.
And yes. And the thing is like, it's a scab not ready to come, but because of the leverage of how much glue there was there, as soon as I flick it, it comes off. And I just know right then, this is a scab that's not ready to come off because it needed stitches. And I just watched as everybody that was looking at me looked at me like in horror. Like I was like basically naked.
Because you're bleeding down your face now.
And at that point, I realized like it's probably because I flicked that thing and I'm probably bleeding a little bit. And as I touched my face was wet. And I knew I just had blood all over my face. And not only did I have blood all over my face, but it was like pouring out. Because by the time I was like, oh, yep, sorry, everybody. I looked down and the desk in front of me has just got blood all over it because I'm dripping blood so fast. So I literally am like, oh, you know what? I got a problem. And you know what? I'll be right back. And I didn't be right back. I went to the bathroom and was like, well, this is just effed. We can bleep that or whatever. But like, then I just came home. I just like drove home. I was just like, well, that day's a wash. Sent everybody an email later. I was like, yep, sorry I was bleeding, everybody.
Was it just an internal meeting?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. I don't, it was an internal meeting for the most part. So yeah.
Yeah. Jiu-jitsu can kind of make life hard at work sometimes.
When you do,
you got to answer a lot of questions. I mean, how many times have you had to answer questions of like, especially women? I think that happens. I have like a lot of girls, like I don't bruise easily, but like a lot of the women that I train with do. And it's like you have all these like basically like finger marks like on your arms and all these bruises on your legs. And you have to like, and people will give you looks like, are you okay? Like, is something going on at home? You know?
I know.
And, or like if you're, you know, if you've got choked and it's like, looks like you got a nice hickey on your neck, like those are things that happen. And like, people are going to ask questions or they won't, which is almost worse.
Yes, that's what I was going to say.
You'd rather just explain like, no, it's just jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. You have a woman in your class and she bruises super easily.
Yes.
And you know what I'm talking about. And
maybe.
Amanda Kempa.
Okay.
Love you, girl.
That's what I thought. She was the person I was thinking of.
Amanda, like she just bruises super easy. And like you said, like they look like fingerprints. To where it's like one of those things where it's
somebody grabbed you really hard.
Yeah, and when it's on your arm, you know, and you go to the grocery store, or you do whatever, and it's like it's clear that somebody like it's a handprint. Like you can see like 4 fingers or whatever. And I always think to myself, man, like what a terrible affliction. Because like if you're a dude and you're out and like you watch somebody notice it, like you watch somebody look at it, you like want to explain immediately and be like, all right, yeah, show us to our table. Anyways, like we both do jiu-jitsu. Like,
I think maybe that's part of the reason that I want a black eye is just so I can be like, you know what, like go out in public and like really like eat it up, like make people think that you like abuse me.
Like on your, like you're getting ready for an MMA fight too, so you got a black eye, and then I'm like, hey, you can't eat that. Not allowed.
And I'd be like, but I really want it. Well, please, please, please. And I'll start begging. Make it look like even worse. Even though I know I can't because, you know, that weight cut is real.
That weight cut is real. And it's one of those things where it's like it's just so draining to have like go through that entire process cutting weight. I hate it so much. And we've both cut like a lot of weight before. And I feel like right now it's one of those things that's really hard to do because if you're training and just training really hard, or maybe you're cutting weight because you're even, you know, like thinking about competing in an event or something, it's like your body goes through all these different aspects of like feeling tired and run down. And it's really hard right now because it's like anytime I feel tired or run down, I'm like, I got that virus, you know?
Corona, for sure.
And it's one of those things, it's like, I know I'm not the only one that's like, anytime anything is wrong with you, like you wake up in the morning and you like sneeze and you're like, can I taste stuff? And you're like licking dirt and like stuff like that.
Licking dirt?
I mean, do I like how you're not licking dirt there at home?
Why would you like dirt? There's probably a quicker way to find out. Just get your toothpaste.
Your alternative to dirt is something that's like equally as like.
I'm just saying, if you wake up, you can go straight to the bathroom and just brush your teeth, and you'll know if you taste or not. You don't have to like go outside or lick something dirty, like the bottom of your shoe.
Go outside, go in their back porch and like just looking dog poop. Just like,
Ew,
I need something that's extreme. Something where I'm going to know for sure.
Too far. Gross.
I'm an extremist, so I had to find...
I feel like, though, like, we're... Especially because we're coming.
Especially,
I know. I didn't even mean to.
Thing, man.
Especially because we're coming to like winter. It's almost like the winter months, and everything's getting colder, and so it's like flu season, cold season. All that's gonna happen. Like I think everybody's gonna be so stressed all the time if you're sick. But I also think that there's a silver lining in this all because you know how many times people be like kind of sick. And they're like, I'm not that sick, it's probably just allergies. And I think then they come train or they're like out in public and they're like spreading their germs with everyone. And so I think because of the like coronavirus, like all this COVID stuff, people will almost be more like cautious.
Hopefully.
With that, hopefully, yes, that's what I hope. I hope that people are more cautious. And so, maybe we'll have less flu this year because of that.
I mean, I know every time I've gone to CVS recently, they're like trying to talk me into doing some kind of like flu shot or something like that.
I mean, they always be doing that though.
Yeah, but I feel like they're real aggressive this year. Where they're like, go ahead and check out. And you reach check out and they got a needle and they're like, I almost got you. Gotcha. And I'm like, hey. I already got one. Stop that. Nice try though.
Yes, I think that's a good... I don't even know.
But I get your point. Like, one of the things that drives me crazy about jiu-jitsu people in general is like the worst thing ever is like you slap hands, you're getting ready to roll, you fist bump, and right as you're fist bumping, the person's like, yeah, man, I've been out for a second because like on Tuesday and Wednesday, which
I was sick and it's only Thursday.
Yeah, and you're like, it's Thursday, and you're like, no, man, you're sick now.
You're still sick.
They're like, I couldn't get out of bed yesterday, but like I'm feeling better today. As if you're gonna be like, oh, cool, you're feeling better. That must mean you're not sick at all.
You're not contagious.
And it was just all in your head.
Yes, I think that is bad, and I think that is something that concerns me. Maybe about like a lot of these tournaments and things happening. Yeah. There's been a couple different things because. I don't know. It just seems like maybe people aren't like they feel like the virus is over, even though like cases are rising. And I do think that like I'm not scared of getting sick with COVID. Like that's not something that worries me, but I don't want to. Like if I can avoid it, that would be great. And I think that a lot of these tournaments that are popping up now because it's just like we just need it, we're done like waiting and it's just time. And I think people are getting a little bit sloppy with their way of handling things. Just from what I see. I haven't experienced it on my own. I haven't been there. The only thing I've done is like fight twins and that's been, the thing is like I thought Bellator, and
Seth
they've done
did a really good job of posting something. Seth
Daniels,
who runs Fight to Win, and he shared something about where he was kind of nervous about starting tournament or basically his show up again, and they'd put in different precautions, which we've done a few of them, and he said he was worried that people would follow suit, and the idea that like, oh, it's not a big deal, keep moving forward. And the thing is like, for me, like if I'd prefer not to get it. But if I do or have had it, like, it is what it is. You know what I mean? Like, that's the result of my choices. There's a risk analysis you have to take into account for yourself. But it's more so about, like, other people. And that's what I'm concerned about with, like, what you were saying with tournaments, where it's like, these are choices that you're making, which is cool. But if it's going to affect the lives of other people that have, like, boundaries and they're like, hey, I'm not willing to take those risks, then it becomes something a little bit different. And that's one of the reasons why I think, like, in general, like, for 2020, like, if you win a title in 2020, like, like, I hate to say Pan Ams because I feel like it's pointed towards anybody that won it, and that's not the point.
No.
It's more just, like, if they're talking about doing the Worlds this year, I don't think it's going to happen. But, like, if you're a world champion in 2020, like, it has to come with an asterisk, right?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't take away from, like, because, like, I know, like, I watched people get ready for it. I watched how hard they fought, and, like, it's not like they had, some of the people that we train with, it's like they didn't have easy matches to get to that championship.
And it's not like they're not fighting people that you wouldn't be like, that guy, might be the world champion at whatever weight or whatever.
Yeah, but that's like, there are a lot of people who can't come and compete because there's, the borders are closed. And so it's a little bit different in that respect, or maybe because of the virus, like the capacity is like less. So there's not as many competitors in your bracket or your division because of that. So there's just a lot of other factors that go into it. Or maybe there's people that are in places where they haven't been able to compete or train or prepare, So that's kind of something that there's a lot of other things that go into it. But it doesn't take away the fact that for me, it's not the fact that like I don't want to take away from anybody who prepared for those tournaments and won them, because I think it's still a huge accomplishment. But I also want to like where was I going with that? I had a thought. I had a whole thing.
Well, the thing is like, you and I were talking about this beforehand, but it's kind of one of those things where it's like, if not everybody's willing to participate for whatever reason, or like you can't, or you don't want to, or whatever, it doesn't take away that other person wasn't the best at that time. It's that this time is just different. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you have to take into it. It's like, is Michael Jordan the greatest basketball player of all time? Well, it's like you look back at his era, and LeBron James wasn't playing in his era. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And like, I don't want to get into that argument because I think it's like real, like people have been inside and outside of it, but it's different. Like you rise to the competition, like.
But I know what I was gonna say. I was like, the thing that is like kind of like bothers me about the titles and the tournaments is like, because the IBJJF, we'll just pick on them for a minute, but it's like they just decided like we're gonna call this tournament Pan Ams. I'm removing it for that. It's that and it's this, and it's like we're just gonna call it this. And which is probably not, I mean, it's not technically different from any other time, like but it's like there's a thing. It's like, but they just decided like, okay, we're going to do Pan Ams, we're going to do American Nationals, we're going to do Master Worlds. It's like, because these were going to be, if we give those titles, those names, to me, this is what it seems like. But it's like, if you give those tournaments those names, then it seems more prestigious. So we'll get more people to sign up. So we'll make more money. But if it's just an open, it's not going to be the same.
Yeah, and I think that does attract more people to compete.
Bothers me about it.
Good and bad, right?
Yes.
It's because, like, I feel like a lot of people that are like, this is my chance, like, to get my name on something that I wouldn't be able to otherwise, go and do it. And then I also feel like you, for lack of a better word, and I'm just going to be blunt, like, you sucker, like, good competitors into competing because they're competitive. They can't help it. They just want to be like, I want to be the best. Like, I'm not going to let somebody else go win the Pan Ams, Yeah.
I mean, low-key, it was hard for me to sit out of Pans this year just because I was like, everybody was getting ready for it. But I'd also had gone through this whole, like, process with myself mentally, and, like, had been through, like, some emotions and, like, dealt with some things where I was like, no. Like, it's going to be bad for me. Like to put myself through the training and to go and do this is just not the right thing for me to do. And so I knew that about me, but I was also like, I should go compete.
And that's the thing is like, there are people that have basically like stayed the course throughout this entire thing, like just been training.
Yeah.
And like, because of opportunities to compete, whether it's in like fight to win or, something else, like you basically are prepared. There are people out there that aren't in that situation, and even if they could compete or they choose not to or whatever, it's like, does this mean the same thing? Like if they put their name in and they lose to that person that's been like kind of training throughout, like, is it the same thing because this other person maybe is like at the best they've ever been because of their focus and lack of ability to do anything else?
Yeah.
I don't know. It makes it difficult, I think. So I do think it comes with an asterisk, for whatever reason, and that's no fault of the people that are the victors, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with them. It's like, it's not to take away from that the titles or the accomplishments of anyone else.
But that makes me wonder in general, like, motivation in coming back. So like, let's say you are one of these people that like has been competing a whole bunch or something like that. Like, do you now, like, is it hard to come back knowing that like other people have been keeping the pace and like getting better and maybe like the best they've ever been, and like for a fact like, hey, I've been kind of sitting this thing out for a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, is it hard to come back?
I think more than anything, it's not that hard for people to come back. Because of like the whole pandemic, like I think people are just ready to feel like normal, and they're itching for that kind of social interaction, the physical like activity, just the challenge yourself, just something different. I think people were itching for that. So that's why you see like these tournaments, like the Nogi Pans like was like full within like 2 days of like them like announcing that they opened, and then those kinds of things. So people are really excited to get back to competition because they miss it. But I also see the other side is like myself, and there's a couple other people I've talked to who have been competing and doing and training and doing all this stuff, where it's like we've been staying the course, and you've been like doing all the things even if you're going to the tournaments, but it just doesn't feel the same, and so the motivation is harder. So I think that's where like I can't speak to the other side because I don't know. I got to train this whole time, and I've been able to like kind of compete when I wanted to and do those things, but it's also just doesn't feel the same. So it's like, why am I doing it?
Yeah, no, for sure. And it makes me wonder a little bit about just in general, like that's how a competitor feels. What about, the person that was almost like a blue belt or almost a purple belt, or, even maybe a black belt.
I mean, there's a lot of people that, life happens and they have to stop training when they are like almost to that next level, regardless of the pandemic, but just in general. And I think that's a really hard thing to come back to, because your ego has to take a huge back seat when you come back, because your timing's going to be off. You're going to be like, I don't feel like I even like, can we take stripes off of my belt? Like that's something that we've had actually a child that just signed up, and they wanted to go like from like a high colored belt. They're like a preteen, and they're like, can I just get a white belt? Like they feel like they don't know anything after all that time. And it's like, no, like you've earned those things. And I always tell people like, yes, like you're gonna feel like out of shape and like you don't know anything and your timing's off and all this kind of stuff, but that will come back so quickly if you just get in the gym and have no ego and train. Like it comes back fast.
Which, by the way, like this is not something we've talked about a lot before, and there's like some high profile examples of this, but like it's fairly common if you like run a gym, or if you're like a black belt that's like awarding people different promotions and stuff like that, to get a new student and them be somebody that's like higher rank, just like purple belt, brown belt, black belt even, and then they're like, hey, I haven't trained in 4 years or 5 years, like should I wear my brown belt or my purple belt or my black belt even? Like what do you tell that person?
Yes, like you've earned that, right? You've earned that. You've been in situations, and this is even saying like kind of like I've been in situations where people have showed up with a belt and they don't ask me that question, and I'm like, you ain't that belt, or you're not at that level. But that's okay. That's like, you're just gonna like, as a professor, I say like, okay, they're just gonna stay longer at that rank than they would, like, I'm not gonna be able to promote them as quickly or as soon or as maybe they hope or they want. But no, if you've trained and you've earned that belt at some time, regardless of how much time you've taken off, that doesn't get taken away from you. You at some point were working really hard for it, and like I said, like it's gonna come back to you soon. And if you're applying yourself, like you'll be back on that level in a matter of like a month or two.
Yeah, and I agree with you. Even in cases where somebody feels like, I came from, the middle of nowhere, and I won't name a state because it seems like it'd be pointed, and it's not. But like I came from the middle of nowhere, and I'm a brown belt, but like I don't feel like I'm really a brown belt or whatever. It's like as an instructor and being somebody that's like taught classes and stuff like that, like I always think like that sucks for that person that they feel that way, because if you feel that way, it doesn't, like I don't care if you're a bad brown belt and you're like I'm a bad brown belt or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like that's cool. Like you
Whatever.
do you know. But
Like,
if you feel bad about it, it's like I want to help you. I want you to get better. So I'm going to try to pick your training partners. I might even choose the techniques I'm going to teach in class that day if I have, you know, like I see you and then I'm like, you know what, this person really struggles with getting their guard pass. I'm going to try to teach them basic stuff here that's going to benefit them because I see them missing that.
Yeah.
You know?
And I mean, and it all comes back to the thing that we've said before, and I would always say is like, and you hear it again and again, but everybody's on their own journey, and you can't compare yourselves to like, yes, like you should be at a certain level, like to where you can compete with all like at that level with your age and your like thing, that kind
all
of
the
thing.
Caveats.
Like there's a lot of caveats, but like you can't hold yourself like to the same standard of somebody who's a competitor training every day.
100%.
If like I'm coming back and like I haven't trained and I was just a hobbyist and you know I have these other things in my life that are more important, so I don't really focus on jiu-jitsu. I just like jiu-jitsu, and it's like something that keeps me in shape and keeps me, you know, sane. And so you can't compare yourself. So it's like, yes, I understand. Like you want to be better. I actually admire that more than anything. Somebody saying like, I just don't think I should wear this belt. I admire the humility in that, but also it's like, no, like you've earned that. You've earned that right to wear that belt. You're not going backwards.
Yeah, and I think of it,
even though I threaten children to take their stripes off and their belts back on the regular,
so
just to get them to behave.
I think about it in terms of like, you know, if somebody's a total fraud, right? Like somebody shows up and they got a black belt and they're clearly a white belt and they've never trained, like that's another thing. And you can usually
that's so different.
It's so easy to pick out. If you're just like, I'm a brown belt, but I just don't feel like if you're a brown belt that just hasn't trained in like 7 years, if you come consistently, like you'll be surprised at how just quickly stuff comes back to you. And that is noticeable because like rolling with people that have come back, it's like you roll with somebody and you're like, man, this guy's trash. And then, you know, like a month later, you're like, man, this guy's giving me a really hard time. Like, you know, he knows this stuff. You can tell he's been training for like 10 years or whatever. And then if somebody's just straight up just bad because maybe, you know, like the place that they had started at, they were like the best, but realistically, you know, they just hadn't been out of their bubble or whatever. Mm-hmm. You know, those people, it's like, you know, you just have a student that knows a lot of different things and they're just like missing all the pieces in between. And you just try to help them with that. So it's one of those things. It's like, I want to make that person feel more confident in their belt. And I think, you know, consistency fixes all those things, you know?
Which is, you kind of like mentioned it, but it's like the same kind of point of with people kind of getting stuck in an environment that's like not helpful to them, like, or they're in a situation like sometimes maybe you feel like you don't have another option, and maybe like in small towns and like areas where there's not like a lot of jiu-jitsu, that might be true, but there's so much available to you like online for learning. So it's like maybe you're in a situation where you feel like I'm not learning anything new. We've talked about that. If you have there are a lot of really good instructionals and things like tools out there for you to actually learn and get better. But if you're in a situation where you feel like I'm not, like, I just see this happening where people are like, they get so scared to leave or so scared of or like just so comfortable in the environment they are, but they know that like, I'm not getting better. This isn't good for me. Like my professors aren't like paying attention to like anything. Like they don't seem like they care, or I'm like trying to think of like worst case scenario, you know, of things. And you might, whatever it is, it might be to you. It's like, if you've gone to your instructors and your professors and like expressed like, hey, like I want to be better at this. And like, you've tried to have these conversations and things still aren't getting better. And you feel like where you're at is holding you back. Like you have to make that move. And trust me, like, I feel like I can say this with the most confidence because I've been in this situation before. And it's like, I wish I would have made changes sooner or spoke up sooner or done things sooner than what I did, because I feel like
or at least tried new things,
or at least tried something different, or I don't know, like maybe did more open mats and like got opportunities to be in front of other people, or I don't know, or just did other things. Did other things.
The thing is like it doesn't cost you anything to go find out. you know?
Yes.
And I think that's the spirit of jiu-jitsu in so many ways, is to like be able to figure out like what works and what doesn't. And it's like, if you feel like the place that I'm in, I'm not learning the right stuff, like Jenna said, like we've talked about it before, like online learning, there's really good applications of that. But even then, it's like you still are probably going to need somebody that knows that game or whatever it is you're doing to like show you some details maybe that you're missing. And guaranteed, jiu-jitsu is so widespread now, like just go.
Yeah.
There's somebody you can go learn from. Go do that.
I mean, coming from the Midwest, I think this is what is kind of hard too. It's like, I think it's so important to like put yourself out there to like experience other people's styles and things, because if you go to a gym, because we would see this all the time because there's not as much jiu-jitsu available to you and where we started, but like you might start at a gym where you think that like this is great and this is what real jiu-jitsu is, and it might not be, because there's like a lot more, it's a lot easier to be a fraud or to be somebody who's like not at the right level and teaching, you know, poorly, or like not being a good professor from other aspects of whatever. And so I think it's important, because I think that was something like we were in a good place and people would come and they would realize like what they were missing, you know, like, oh, I didn't know like this was that, like, cause I remember teaching a women's, only like jiu-jitsu camp, and it was like 3 days, and I'm teaching stuff, and I'm like, we're doing a position, I think we're like passing the guard and ending up in side control, and there was a group of blue belt women who looked at me and they're like, well, why am I going to hold the head in side control? Like, they didn't understand holding somebody's head. And I was like, what? Like, that's like the most important thing. Like, that's the only thing you should be doing, like, for the sake of this conversation. And so it was just because of where they came from, like, they weren't getting like top level, like, or I guess adequate instruction. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think they were being taught by like a purple belt or a blue belt.
That you enjoyed like, most about teaching those camps a lot of times is like being able to share with those women, like, hey, you know, you don't have to necessarily even leave your gym, but like don't be afraid to like venture out, because you think everybody else is gonna have like a big ego or something. Like, there's lots
out an open mat, and check out like open mats are probably some of the most fun training you can get, because you have all these people who just love jiu-jitsu getting together. It's not a lot of ego. It's just like, we just want to train and have a good time. And and everybody's willing to, if you're going to good ones, like share their information too. It's like, oh, like that was really cool what you did. Can you show me how this? Or like, hey, this was giving me a problem. Like, what were you doing there? Like, those kinds of things.
And those people are flawed, you know, like,
for sure.
Those people are jiu-jitsu addicts too.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to like write that off. But at the same time, like you said, like for the most part, like you're going to walk away from all those experiences just feeling like good.
Yeah.
Like, I'm glad
like
I did that.
The community is such, it's so tight knit in a way, you know, like it's just, like if you're not branching out like and experiencing other things, I feel like you could maybe be missing out. Not to say that you're not, like, I have my home gym, I love my gym, like Alliance San Diego is like my place, like I feel at home, I have everything I need there, but I also just love like experiencing like training with other people, and we have people come in to cross train with us, and it's because, you know, it's good to see other looks and what other people have to offer. I don't know.
I mean, I think we've covered that before.
Yeah.
I don't think there's
for sure
any caveats that need
but
to be
it's
said
just
there.
saying, like, if you're not in a situation where you feel like your situation is holding you back, like, just test the waters, see what's out there.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest mistake you can make is basically not branching out, not you know, wondering these things. And, you know, realistically, it's like you're the person that's not, you know, if you're like, well, I feel like I'm not getting better because I'm not, that's your fault. Go do those, whatever it is you think, and figure out if you're right or not. Like, that's jiu-jitsu to a T. It's like, that's
what I'm saying. Like, if you're not talking with your professors and asking questions, and like you feel like you're not getting better, but you just sit there and you pout about it, and like nobody's paying attention. No, like that's on you. Like, you know how many like students I come in contact with or teach on a regular basis? It would be impossible for me to just like see every little thing with every person all the time. you have to bring this to the people that you're in front of.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And I think that, for the most part, if you're somebody and you're listening to this and you still don't take action, even after listening to this podcast on like, oh, I need to go to blah, blah, it's like, that's a story you're telling yourself, You're
yes,
like,
stop lying to yourself.
That's your excuse where it's like, well, I don't do this or I don't do that because whatever. It's like, that's on you. You can go do that. There's nobody stopping you except for you.
That is true.
And that's the point. Then hopefully that is more encouraging than it is like
take ownership, take responsibility, like for your own journey.
Yeah. And that's the point of this podcast, is to encourage you, to make you feel better. And hopefully... And
then also, bring you down a peg if you are getting too big of a head.
And that's Jena to a T. So you're going to get some of that with the podcast. But, I think we're really thankful and grateful for all the people that listen and or watch the podcast. And if you have a chance to leave a review or something like that, those are awesome. Otherwise, like, comment on the videos, subscribe to the channel. Those things are awesome. We love interacting with everybody. And
hit us up on like social media and like let us know things that you want us to talk about. Yeah. Or if you have questions for us, we would love to answer those as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll probably do a Q&A or something like that sometime soon. But yeah, we source a lot of the topics and things that kind of we kick off here from just fans that interact, so we're grateful for that. Anything else, Jena?
I mean, also just a shout out to our sponsor, Fuji Sports. Like, if you need gis and MMA gears, no-gi stuff, judo stuff, they have it all. So go to fujisports.com, use the code BISHOP for 20% off.
Which is crazy. Like, we were talking about this the other day. It's like Fuji's like one of the best. Like, we've been using Fuji gear for I truly do decade.
Love them and love the people, the company,
one of the
everything.
Best, most consistent products you can buy in terms of gis, like you mentioned, no-gi stuff. And so 20% off, which is, especially right now, it's like no small thing. So Bishop at checkout. We actually are not making it's not like we're making a percentage of that. Like, that's just for you because Fuji loves us and we love you guys.
Yeah.
We love you.
For the love.
So I think that's it. Yeah. We want to thank everybody for listening to another episode of
Not Fighting.